the typhoid of this 21st century is drug and alcohol. We don't have time for each other.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Noongar Wadandi Mort. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
Scratch the surface and everyone has a story. Welcome, Kaya, to the wisdom of women.
Now, today's guest has been described as a world of healing and wisdom, and let's face it, in a world like we've got at the moment, we need a lot of healing.
Yes, welcome, Pat Kelly. And Pat, through all your experience with counselling, how would you say a good chat and a cup of tea would go?
Well, I guess, since we've known, we all know that as human beings we're built to be in connection with. So when you think about sitting across a table like this and we look back over, our years, where did we learn how to have a conversation with? Only across the dinner table. In our own homes, in our grandparents' homes, in wherever. And out of that, we learned a little bit about ourselves. So when I hear the word counselling, it's got to do with the understanding of professional counselling, which we need to have credibility and accountability. But the essence of being able to look at somebody and start engaging with them and truly listen to them, that is extremely powerful. Because in that way, not alone are you connected to them, but they're also connected to you. And anything can happen.
I love the way you say that. So you've got both the yin and the yang of counselling because you've got all these years of incredible connection and experience in talking and meeting with people. Yeah. But you also, of course, have your professional background. Yeah. Can you run us through, your pathway through all this?
Well, it's interesting because I would always say to do the job that I do, first of all, you need capacity. So capacity isn't about academic qualifications. First of all, you need to actually like people.
That's helpful.
Very helpful. And I remember one time I used to do some professional development at ECU for some of the nursing students. And I'd look across at them and they're all eager. And I'd say, whatever you do, if you don't like people, don't come into this job. Because I don't want to meet you in the nursing home when you're menopausal. Because, that's, Did
anyone leave the room?
No, they had a little bit of a giggle. But the first thing is the capacity. So what I mean by that is that you actually like to engage with somebody, that you see the sacredness in their eyes, and you're curious about them. So out of that, what I learned over the years then is competencies to ensure that I reflect on whatever action that I took at that time to get some learning edges that goes, ooh, that's what I set out to do, but this is what happened. Will I do that again? No, probably not. So I'm always gracious and thankful to the people that taught me best, and they were the people that were in front of me. And because of my role at St. John of God Hospital, I would always say the minute you park in the car park of a St. John of God Hospital or any hospital, you are rendered vulnerable unless you're a staff member, right? Because you're not going there to have a cup of coffee. Yeah. You're going there because in some way somebody needs healing, you need healing, and you're connected to them. So when you walk in there, it's really important that the people that meet you in uniform, first of all, recognise you. And to do that, basically, hello, how are you? Where are you going? Can I help you?
The friendly smile.
Friendly smile, just the connection.
Yeah.
And out of that then, remarkable things can happen. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
We do. Yes. We all know, I think, and appreciate the value, as you say, of just a welcoming face of someone saying, how are you? Can I do something to help you? So professionally, you studied.
Yes, I did. Degree. Now, what really was interesting was I learned how to do the job without any academic study.
We've heard this before as well. You've got experience, but then you go and get the piece of paper.
And I was sick to death listening to people saying, God, she does a very good job, but she's got no counselling qualifications. She's got a nursing background, right? Yeah. And, of course, if you wanted to progress in your career, you obviously need to keep studying. So I decided that, well, first of all, I might attempt to do my psychology degree. And fortunately, we were still offering the psychology programme at ECU in Bunbury. Mm-hmm. And I just got in to do it when they changed it back up to Joondalup in Perth. So, first of all, I got in, which was a miracle in itself.
What, and you doubted that you'd get in?
I was 44.
Oh. See, isn't that wonderful to think at 44, there you are, off to uni.
Absolutely. And it took me, because I worked full-time as well, it took me from 44, I was just 50 when I got my degree. And then I decided that I still didn't have enough qualifications, because the more qualifications you have, the more somebody will tell you that you don't have enough.
Oh, that's so good.
Okay.
How ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely how ridiculous. But what I noticed was that the interventions that I was providing to the people in front of me was recognised more within the clinical model when I was able to sign my name with a couple of letters after it. Mm. There was no change of pat.
Yeah.
But also I would say that going to university gave me the ability to articulate language. Mm. And when you're in that field, especially within the medical model, you need to be able to articulate language because of interventions, because we can do an awful lot of harm. Yes. Okay. So then I looked again and I thought, well, I'll go to Notre Dame and I'll do my postgrad in counselling, because I didn't want to be a clinical psych, because that's psychometric testing.
What do you mean by that? Sorry, well, psychometric testing.
Yeah, there's a big difference in counselling from the basic hello, how are you, and that deep listening, to the ability to use tools that have been formulated in a way that's able to pick up diagnosis.
Okay, it's an entirely intense and high level of understanding the human mind.
Well, it's more about being able to prove the evidence of the behaviour that you're presenting at this moment in time, which tend to be for people that are not managing well in society with resilience. Right. Okay. So it's a different understanding within the medical model, as where counselling will have a gamut from a basic conversation where the person just needs to be heard objectively, away from people that they know, so that they can find that sacred space, to really quite intense interventions where you might use a theoretical model so that you can measure, right? But psychometric testing takes a different deliberation.
Right, so that wasn't for you.
Not for me.
You really got value, do you think, out of that face-to-face connection?
Absolutely. That's what I get. Because I will always say, for me personally, in giving I receive, and in receiving I give. Mm. And I learned that from the people that I worked with, mostly with the patients and their loved ones, because they allowed me to enter that sacred space. And in that, I engaged with them, which I was giving. And what I got in return was they gave to me. So it was very balanced.
So you're talking your experience in palliative care.
Yeah, it's interesting that people bring up palliative, and that's a unique place to be in the hospital, and I agree with that. But if you go back to the understanding that whoever comes in through the door, if they're not a staff member, they're there for a reason. So their vulnerability is no less than anybody else's in the bed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. So I would say that it didn't matter which room I went into. their vulnerability was their vulnerability. And if you're trying to measure that on a scale, you'd be surprised that it's no different. Now, obviously, when we're told that the disease that we've got or the condition that we've got is life-limiting, and there is that corner is beginning to manifest where we will lose our life, it goes from the third person then to the first person, because we all know we're going to die. Like, I don't get up every morning thinking, well, I'm going to die, you know. If I did, I'd probably get back to bed with a bottle or something, or, you know. Thinking I wouldn't have a hangover in the morning, so, you know, But, you know, we all know we're going to die. But it's amazing when it's put in front of us in the first person. Now, I haven't experienced that, even though I've had a couple of woozies of cancer, but I haven't been told that. But I have been in the sacred space of somebody that's been told that news, and then they're looking at life in the first person, which I guess is very different if you were going in for a dental extraction.
Yeah.
Right, so
absolutely.
that vulnerability. But people tend to hone in on us when we have worked in palliative, and they think we're special. I would argue and say we're no different than any of the rest of the teams that are around. It's just that we're probably better at that than maybe doing CPR.
I understand what you're saying, but I still think there is an element of it being special, because we all know how people can get so uncomfortable. You're talking about something so confrontational that who knows what to say.
You have to be that, you know, Sean, like what you're saying, I am interpreting that as you've got to be the person, because there could be 5 awesome nurses and people who are really empathetic. There's got to be someone there who can dive in and say, right, this is really serious, and this, I'm here for you, and I'm not scared.
And when I talk about that capacity, like, you can learn competencies, right, through, you know, maybe exposure and that. But capacity is something very different. Capacity, first of all, has your ability to have your boundaries. Your professional boundaries, extremely important. Your ability to what I used to call, I have a little off switch here. I learned that, and I know how to turn it on, and I know how to turn it off. And also my ethical and respect for you, whoever you are. If I have left one person and I'm still carrying that when I go to the next person, I'm actually disrespecting you. So I should not actually enter your space until I'm able to switch that off, so that I can switch this on.
So you need to offer yourself 100%
capacity. So what you'll find with people that do our roles is we have a very, very black sense of humour. And we like to have fun. But also what we're able to do is we're able to engage at that level and then leave it there, so that we don't bring it home to the families that we need to go home to, because they don't need to hear it. Now, as time goes on, and I've managed a department, so I've trained quite a lot of people, essentially what you need then in these sort of roles is what I call clinical supervision, not counselling. So clinical supervision is an action reflection model of learning. Action reflection model of learning. So it's not academic. It's about, if I've got the ability with somebody that's there for me to look back on the action. What did I set out to do? What did I do? And in that, I would get what I call gold nuggets of wisdom.
That sounds so nice.
Gold nuggets of wisdom. From the academic perspective, they call them learning edges. But I like gold nuggets of wisdom, because I can see myself in the action then. And out of that then, I can see, well, where was I in my head? What was I thinking about? What was the person saying that might have triggered me? What did I do well? What could I have done better? And what will I do when I'm in that situation the next time? Will I do exactly the same thing? Maybe. If I pick up a gold nugget of wisdom that goes, oh, well, that didn't work so well, did it? And I get some understanding and clarity around that, well, then I don't do that again. Yeah. So I used to find that really quite helpful when I was trying to engage people in the role so that they felt safe enough to come back to me and say, you know, Pat, I went down there and I did blah, blah, blah. I think I blew it.
Oh, okay.
You know,
useless.
I was useless, and then, you know, all of that. And I'd say, well, let's just sit down and just see where we're at with all of that. And just to empower them and encourage them that, yeah.
Because I can imagine self-reflection and quite an intense questioning
Yeah.
of how you've handled a situation.
Yeah.
It can often lead a lot of people to be going, oh, that was terrible, rather than actually focusing as well on the positives.
Yeah.
What they did do.
Yeah.
Do right.
Yeah.
But I imagine in your sphere, in your space with counselling, and it's about learning, and your experience over the years has helped you get to a point where you are. Like people coming into that newly would not have those skills.
Absolutely not. So it goes back to experience. Experience. But I would still suggest that if you don't have the capacity, whatever experience you get ain't going to get anywhere. Right. Now, you will notice that part of my journey, especially at St. John of God, was that I went out to the St. John of God drug service and I did pharmacotherapy, which is the replacement for for opiates. And I also did a community-based rehab program. And they were my best teachers. They were so generous of themselves. Their vulnerability and their capacity to say thank you was very humbling. And I remember one of them said to me one day, you know, Pat, you live in one part of Bunbury and I live in another, and you have no idea how the other exists. And that was quite powerful for me. Yeah. You know, I was going home to a safe bed, going home to a loving husband. They had nowhere to go.
How do you reconcile that? I know you say you turn the switch off because you have a family to go home to.
Yeah.
But how does that sit in your mind?
Absolutely. I guess in one way, one of the reasons the St. John of God sisters came to Australia in 1895 was for the typhoid in Kalgoorlie with the miners.
Really?
Yeah, that was the reason they came.
There's a little nugget.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, that's why we have the organisation in the same way that we have it today. Even though I'm not at St. John's now, you can still hear. Spent 30 odd years. So I personally think that the typhoid of this 21st century is drug and alcohol.
Really?
I do.
That's an interesting analogy to make.
And I don't think we have the right people coming to help.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yes.
Because it just seems to be getting worse. It's not getting better.
It's not getting better. And alongside that then is, the shame attached to it, because I have a passion for carers. I don't do, in my private practice now, I don't have people that are still using because it's too dangerous for me. But I have a huge passion for carers because I believe if we can support the carers.
So the people who are helping.
Well, no, not so much the loved ones. The loved ones,
yeah, that's what I'm.
Sorry, the loved ones, the families. So I think if we can support them, that gives them the capacity to manage their boundaries around the person, and then maybe seek help a little bit quicker. But it is a typhoid, and
do you have your thoughts about some of the reasons why there is such an addiction problem, why drugs is such a huge issue in our society? Is it a combination of things?
I think it's a combination. But one thing that we have in Australia and in any of the first world countries, I believe, is the poverty of the availability of time. We don't have time for each other.
It's a society problem.
Okay.
It's a society problem. Yeah. You just look around. We go into our houses, we put the garage door down, we've got a television in every room, we've got every technology that you can, but we don't know how to say hello, how are you? So it is the poverty of time. Can you imagine going into a nursing home today and somebody hasn't had anybody wrap their arms around them for maybe 10 years?
So that's just so incredibly sad, isn't it?
How many times have you gone into a supermarket and they've got all those things for sick kids, which there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing about putting anything in for somebody for the nursing home.
Yeah, that's...
So that they could have a little bit of comfort or maybe have a bus ride to Timbuktu, you know. Because, you know, putting out sick kids, you know, gets the media going.
I know,
Yes.
That's so true what you're talking about.
But, you know, so if we look at the older people that haven't been wrapped for a long time, technology will not wrap you.
It's so interesting hearing you talk about that. It is that connection, as you say, because time means connection. And
What did
society-
Sid do to me when I come in?
Oh, I know.
What'd she do?
It
I've
was
taught
beautiful.
What did you do?
Sid loves cuddles, so she cuddles everyone that she comes up to.
But it was what
they're
it
gorgeous.
But it was what it did to me.
Yeah, I wondered what she did because I was shutting the door and you cuddled.
And you noticed that it actually settled me down, didn't you? Did you notice that?
She's a good cuddler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that took time.
Aw.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, the availability of time for those couple of minutes.
It's funny you talk about
Yeah.
the cuddle because I've always had a rule with my children that we have to have a cuddle that lasts 20 seconds because somewhere way back I read some research about how it takes 20 seconds
For the
bodies
endorphins,
To, yes,
yeah.
see, look, Pat's shaking her head here
Yeah.
going, yes. It's
Yeah.
that fun. They used to be so annoyed.
Appropriately. The cuddles need to be appropriate and they need to be set within boundaries.
Yes. But of course. But
Yeah.
my children used to be like sad
Yeah.
sacks in my arms sometimes,
Yeah.
counting down
Yes.
to 20 seconds.
Both people need consent for the hug, Mum.
Yes, that's it, Sid. That's it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just find it fascinating, though, just talking about that connection. And technology is a huge issue. as
Well, we learned it in COVID, didn't we?
Yes, we did, I guess.
We learned it in COVID, yeah. In the context of connection and disconnection, I think COVID has had a huge impact on the world's mental health for all age groups. I think we were fortunate here in WA because we have a big backyard, right? Now, however, well, compared to maybe a mother or parents in a unit in the middle of Sydney and being locked down, we had a big backyard, all right. However, it was still confronting to me because I couldn't get out to go home to Ireland, right? So that was quite, I don't know what the word is, confronting is one word, but I could feel it ebbing away at my spirit. It was beginning to dissolve my energy because I had done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
I'd done nothing wrong that I was, told that I had to stay, right? Like I understood it cognitively, but I'm talking about my heart and my spirit. And I was travelling with quite a lot of people that were not allowed to have the funeral that they wanted, travelling with people that weren't able to see their loved ones as they were taking their last breath, watching children being brought into the world, seeing everybody in mass. My little granddaughter, she's 13 now, she was about 9 at the time, and she was afraid to come to Granny in case Granny might die because I'm still on chemo, so from all of those sort of perspectives. And then in my professional role, because I go around Australia, just the increase in domestic violence, increase in alcohol, because it was self-medicating, and an invisible enemy.
Yeah, you're right, invisible. Yeah, all we know is the world was turned upside down.
Upside down,
lives.
And I heard somebody say, and I think it's a quite interesting way for me to think about it. I'm not criticising governments in any shape or form, or the medical profession. They were trying to fly the plane as they were building it. And I think now, in reflection, going back to the action reflection model of learning, we're probably going to learn an awful lot.
Yeah.
And then as healthcare professionals, it was compulsory that we had it. Yeah, personally, I was quite happy to have it, but...
But you're right, it created quite a divisive sections in society.
Absolutely. And did we ever think we weren't going to allow our eastern cousins into Western Australia?
Oh, build the wall. It was all going on though, wasn't it? It was so fascinating.
Let me assure you.
All those conversations were going on.
Those conversations were going on. So it also demonstrates to us, in that disconnect, we can fall into that very, very quickly if we believe in some way you're different. So I think it's very important that we all keep that in mind.
Yeah, again, so this is that respectful sense of respecting people for who they are, how they go about their lives, what they believe in.
Yeah. And if you actually listen to them, it's fascinating. Because the differences, if you look for the similarities, the differences will never keep you apart.
I love that. I love that. That's so profound.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
If you look for the similarities, the differences will never keep you apart. Like, I work with a lot of people that have different, their spirituality is nourished by different religious traditions. And I love asking them, tell me more about that. And at the end of the day, it's about a knowing, a knowing is what I call it. So we just have a way of that knowing touching us in a way that speaks to us personally. Like our Indigenous have it in the land. I personally have it in the landscape of Ireland as well. I love going home, lying on my stones.
Yeah.
If the weather was nice. If.
Isn't that interesting? It's almost a DNA deep connection.
Don't they say there's something about the energy in the earth and the rocks?
Absolutely.
Earthing.
Earthing.
I went over to the Oval yesterday morning at 7 or 6, and I didn't wear shoes, and I was saying I'm just earthing, but it was freezing cold, and I don't know what I was doing.
But honestly, that's exactly what it is, and it's interesting that in psychology we called it grounding. Like, just think about it, like grounding. So you stick your feet, and it's your feet that actually hold you up. So if the ground is holding you, that special landscape that speaks to you, like, it just fattens you on energy and vitality, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. For me, it's the sound of the waves in the ocean.
Yeah, any of that. Well, we're blessed living in the southwest of WA. I mean, who could complain about it?
Here.
Oh, it's just stunning. Winter, summer, we're so lucky.
Yeah. Just nearly as good as the west coast of Ireland.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Pat, reflecting on all the people that you've met, all the people that you've sat down and had a conversation with, are there ones that stick in your mind? Are there periods where you have been fundamentally, I'm not saying destroyed, but quite affected, that it took you a bit to sort of come to terms with? The firsts, maybe, of situations?
Yeah, probably that. But I get back to that capacity. I'm able to stand in that sacred space and dwell in it in a way that up to now seems to be beneficial to the other person. So, but there's been quite a few people that have really impacted my life, especially here in Australia in particular. If I go back first, my grandmother in Ireland has my mother's mother. She was very significant in my life. But then here we had, and you would probably know of her, Shauna, Sister Romanis. Sister Romanis was just unbelievable and is unbelievable. But when I think of some of the patients, and I have full permission to talk about this patient by his son.
You don't have to say names or
Yeah,
whatever.
but there was one particular patient that was 106.
Oh.
And he actually had served in, he was an Englishman, and he had served in World War One. And he came in, and I used to have a good old yarn with him. And I remember one day he looked at me and he says, "You know, Pat," he says, "you can live too long. There is nobody in this world living that I can reminisce with."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He said, "I don't want to make new friends." He said, "I want to have a good old yarn with somebody that knows what I'm talking about."
Yeah.
Now, that was quite powerful, but what's in addition to that, his 80-year-old son came in. And I knew his 80-year-old son because I looked after his wife. So he and I were chatting, chit-chat like, even though I'm listening. And the person, the 106-year-old says, "Well, did you come to see her or did you come to see me?" And the 80-year-old looked at me and he says, "Have you any idea what it's like to be 80 years of age and still have your father telling you off?"
Cannot imagine.
But it's so gorgeous. I
what a
love
beautiful
that.
story.
How powerful is that?
That is so
Yeah.
incredibly powerful.
And I've met quite a few of what we call the Bunburyites.
I love the way you say that.
Yeah, there was one particular lady that would have been one of the elite that was just such a lady, and I just loved her history. People that built Bunbury from an architectural perspective, people that were related to Ned Kelly, people that were related to Albert Facey. Just love sitting down yarning with them.
That's great yarns.
Yeah.
And that's something to be said about, I suppose, engaging with people, with patients who have had a long, fulfilling life. How do you reconcile the complete opposite when you're talking
absolutely.
about babies, families going through those situations?
So just again to answer that question that you did ask me, the what would really probably sit with me for a while would be when a mother would hand me her dead baby and ask me to take care of her dead baby. Yeah. So she would look me in the eye, and I would look her in the eye, and she would hand her dead baby over to me. Yeah, that's extremely profound and phenomenal, and the sacredness around that, yeah. Or a little boy or a little girl, at 2 or 3 years of age that might have drowned it. Somebody that was 19 or 20 that's dying, and their parents sitting by their bed. So sometimes the order of life is presented in a way that shouldn't be, and they can be very difficult ones. Yeah.
The eternal question of why.
The eternal question of why, and they need to be allowed to say that. Obviously, we don't have an answer. We might be able to tell them clinically, but I also would say going back to that question of what's the difference today, I think we've lost the sacredness of giving the person the right to mourn.
And the concept of mourning or grief having a time span.
Well,
because
let's look at it. We get 3 days bereavement leave. That's the policy, and that's the policy of the government, right? Now we all know that's not going to work,
it's ridiculous,
but it's there. So what does it tell us from a deeper understanding that if they say I can be right after 3 days, well then surely I must be right. Okay, so I think we've lost the sacredness of giving the person the right to mourn. And the other thing that I've noticed is we don't have the same rituals that our ancestors did. Now, if they didn't survive mourning none of us in the room would be here.
No.
So, mourning is part of life, but the idea behind it within the medical model as well is, you need to go to bereavement counselling. You need to go and see somebody. No, you don't. What you need is for somebody to sit down alongside you and just let you be. And roll with it.
We've diagnosed grief and mourning as some kind of clinical
Pathology.
condition, but it's just a
part of life.
Part of life.
Yeah.
I was feeling a little bit vulnerable yesterday about something, and I was talking to my husband about it, and one of my friends is still mourning. Of course, she'll mourn for the rest of her life. And I said something about her, and he said, she needs to go back to counselling, blah, 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 whatever. And he goes, you need to go too. And I said, no, I don't. I just need to talk to you. I'm just like I talk to you. And this is what you're saying. Sometimes, yes, counselling's great.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just need to get it off my chest and talk to people and maybe have a little tear.
Absolutely.
I don't expect anything back.
Well, there is no
answer.
answer.
The right words because, I don't know the right words to say to most people. Who does? It's very difficult. I just want the space to
There's no script. There is no script. And there might be certain things that we wouldn't say that we've learned, but when somebody dies, it has never happened before and it'll never happen again. So sometimes what can happen is that one size fits all. Well, no, it doesn't. It's about the intensity of the relationship, where, when and how, all of that. So it's a conversation, again, back to connection. Yeah.
And don't be afraid to keep having those conversations, because my friend was saying, no, I'm a burden.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
She said to her daughter, we're burdens now. We can't keep turning to our friends like this.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years. We're becoming burdens.
If we set the scene here, they lost
a child.
A child.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah, absolutely terrible.
And I'm so tormented by the fact that she thinks that she's a burden
Absolutely.
to me.
Yeah.
And I kicked her ass and I rang her and I said, no. And she said, I'm at work and I can't have this conversation. But I was like, you can text me or call me at 11 o'clock at night and I will drive to Perth and I will... And if by the time I get there you're fine again, that's fine. But please don't think that to anybody, anyone who loves you, or to anybody, a stranger in the street, that you'll ever be a burden. But we do think that.
We do, and that's been laid on her. That's been laid, whether it's been done purposely or not. It's a bit like shame, you pick it up.
That's it.
You pick it up. It's embarrassing. But I would suggest also is that you don't wait for them to call because they haven't got the energy.
Yeah.
So you go up there and you say, well, you can tell me to bugger off if you want.
Oh, I'm a bit annoying. I'm a bit like that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good, because at the end of the day, it's about knowing that I'm not a burden, I'm seen, and that my right to mourn has been respected. Yeah. I think we've lost that, and we've lost it as well with rituals, because rituals allowed the people in the community or in our community to say things that words don't make, that words haven't got the same impact. Like, for example, why would we be going out to dinner on a Tuesday night if it wasn't for that we're recognising or acknowledging something? There used to be a lot of church services, the way that you wore your clothes, all of those. So they told its own message. But what it did was it demonstrated that you had a right to mourn. We've lost that. I think so anyway.
I agree with you. We've had another lady speak to us.
Yeah.
Samara Allen.
Yeah,
You know
I know
Samara?
Samara, yeah.
And it's the same message that
Yeah.
you're saying. And then we've had another lady who is very involved with drugs, Julie Kent,
Yeah.
in helping.
Yeah.
And it's the same message that
Yeah.
it's all, we've got to get back to our communities and we
Yeah.
have to start talking
Yeah.
and, yes, recognise the clinical, medical aspects and
Yes.
the professionals, yes.
Yes,
but
there's a
also
time and place.
Our
Yeah.
village, and I think I said this in my post, we need our villages.
Yes, we
and
do.
we've lost our villages.
We do.
And
Yeah.
something is happening and we need to get it back. And
Yeah.
I guess going back to what you said about COVID, because
Yeah.
our villages were
Yeah,
Torn
torn
apart.
apart.
yeah.
Yeah.
And not alone that, but we became suspicious. You know, so there's a part in us as well, in the human being, that, you know, so that can actually build up as well. Like, all you have to do is think about it when they put the border between Mandurah and Bunbury.
Yes. Yes.
I seen a Perth car down the Margaret River.
Yeah. how quick we were to turn against.
Yeah, never mind somebody that's coming in off a boat somewhere.
You were outside your fence.
Yeah, you're outside. Absolutely, you're outside your fence, and that's in all of us.
Do you know what I find interesting about this as well is the fact that we, as say older people, have had the benefit, you know, from Generation X upwards, of knowing what it's like to connect. My family life was very much family orientated. And
you knew who you
connecting.
were.
And now I look at the young ones coming through, like Sid, for example, who has only existed in this world.
Yeah,
So
technology.
They do not even understand
No.
or have any knowledge of how important that societal connection can be.
And when you say about what I've learned over the years and some of the people that have influenced my life, especially in these roles, I had to learn from them. So I had to ask the questions. I had to follow them because I didn't know. Now the young ones just go. You know, so like they don't actually have to ask how do you get to Timbuktu? They just do this. So in one way, they've been transported over here from a technology perspective where they've missed out that lived experience. But then when something emotionally is percolating, they don't... Is that your dog?
Oh.
Go and get your dog.
I don't know if
Studio
everyone
dog.
can hear this, but we've got our studio dog. He's crying in the background. Do you want to...
grab him? I can grab him.
Joe
Yeah.
can go and grab him.
Yeah, because this is turned off, isn't it?
Oh, no, that's still running, but
Is
that's,
it?
that's all good.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Where was I? I heard the dog crying.
Yes, so we were talking about that gap. So you've got
Yeah,
that,
I think
that
there was
lack of...
that emotional resilience then hasn't been built up because they've gone like that with the technology. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you
absolutely it
think?
does.
Do you think that's as
Yeah,
well
where do you
said?
sit with
Yeah.
it, Sid?
Yeah,
No, I
I'd like
think
to hear
that's
that.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm lucky though because you've told me a lot about, and I've heard a lot about, you know, the whole generational gap, I guess. So I'm very more open to it, but I do agree with the whole technological side.
Yeah,
Everyone's more talking through their phones than in person.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes in my professional life, I might hear somebody say, "Well, I'm going to either text him or her, and I'm going to break it off because it's easier to text."
Oh, this is a relationship
Yeah,
being broken
Yeah.
down, but we're doing it over text.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
absolutely. And I think to myself, "Ooh, yeah, that's not going to work."
No.
I love the way you say that with that straight face.
Yeah, that's not going to work. No, because somebody's going to get hurt and badly hurt.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't stop somebody hearing what they will consider bad news, but you need to be able to deliver it in a way that they still feel respected and honoured for the fact that they were in your space for X amount of time. Yeah. So some of that sort of technology stuff, yeah. Thank
Pat,
God it wasn't
you-
around when I was a
Oh,
teenager.
can you imagine? No, instead we used to write it
In
on
my
notes.
school uniform.
Write it on
Oh,
notes. Will you go out with me?
yeah.
Your friend used to do it.
Yeah.
So-and-so said, you go out with them, yeah. Okay, so-and-so said you dumped.
Yeah,
That could happen
Okay.
from recess and then at lunchtime.
yeah. Well, I'm just that little bit older, so yeah, you know, none of them sort of things would happen. Like, yeah, there'd be definitely a conversation, there'd be a connection and a disconnect. So,
Pat, I know that you've shared on your Facebook page some interesting research talking about how women can tend to be more susceptible to addictive behaviours. Is this something that you're happy to have a chat with us
yeah,
about?
well, I think addictive. I mean, I've got an addictive personality myself.
Because
you
this
know.
does lead as well, yes, to
Yes.
the fact that you have dozens upon dozens of pairs of shoes, Pat.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Beautiful shoes.
Yeah, and I love my shoes. I love my shoes. And my big sister told me one time, Pat, the only reason you love shoes is because it's the only thing that fits you.
Can't believe I laugh. She loves you, doesn't she?
Well, oh, she does love me. She seriously does love me. But she'd say the same thing today. She'd say, well, it's true.
Don't you just love family?
Oh, absolutely. Oh. But addictive behaviour with women, I think in some way that power differential is still quite
existing.
Thank you. It's still existing. As smart as we think we've come, you know, I'm probably one of the first women in the 70s that was told that I could have it all, you know, compared to my mother. I don't know what it all, I'm still waiting for it all. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's impossible. You can't have, you know, a career and also try and maintain family and all of that. You know, something has to give. So what I find with addictive behaviours is it's the way of self-managing. So some will do a whole load of exercise, you know, some will in some way have to be engaging in A, B or C. And sadly, when I worked down at the drug service, what I learned was how easy it is for women to drink wine.
I was just going to say, there's kind of the memes that go around and,
yes.
and the humour that generates around, oh, mummy's having a wine.
Yes, yeah. And I haven't drank wine since 2007 for that reason, because I learned very quickly that, oh, it's so sociable for women. Like if you went out at 10 o'clock in the morning for a brunch and somebody said, would you like a wine? Oh, yeah. You know, it's quite acceptable. So I think from that perspective, that can be quite addictive. But I think we're still trying to, you know, in some way find our place in a society where there's an equality. And alongside that now, because we've got out there and the pendulum might have swung a little bit too far, now we have our younger generation of men that's trying to work out where they are as well. So that, along with technology, can provide the correct environment for you to self-medicate in a way that's unhealthy, and particularly for women.
Yeah.
Does anybody agree with that? Or?
Yeah, no, I do.
It's kind of like I didn't quite understand. I kind of got it a bit, but I didn't quite understand. But that's really clear.
Yeah, good.
What you're saying.
Yeah,
particularly when I think about the wine.
Yeah.
And, you know, the memes and the jokes, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I think it is important to recognise that we don't have to be feeling like we are successful to 100% in every aspect or facets of our lives. We need to understand that the ebb and flow of it means that some weeks the mum aspect of it is probably not going to go all that well, but hey, you might have a good career week, or you know, or socially you
life
might have
is
to pull
messy.
back. Like, it's going to happen.
Life is messy, and I think the greatest gift that we could have, first of all, is our health, but the second one is the ability to adapt.
Yep.
So if you've got the ability to adapt, you'll manage everything.
Yeah.
You adapt your hair.
Oh, I'm with you.
Yeah. I was one of the first chicks in the, you know, in my 50s that decided I've had enough of that.
Yeah.
Let's just go all natural.
Love it. Yeah.
So, you know, that ability to let go, I think is, I think we'll enter that winter season of our life and face that inevitable a little bit more peacefully.
And it's possibly a really great attribute for younger people to develop as well. I'm just thinking with Sydney and understanding, you know, the ebb and flow of how life works. And sometimes it is going to be god awful.
Absolutely.
And you have to just pull yourself back up and off you go.
Absolutely.
But then also embracing all the joyfulness of the triumphs. And
well, the way I look at it is it's pretty mundane. And then we have spontaneous moments of blissful joy that just, you know, like I was looking after my grandchildren, not last night, was it last night? The night before, I think.
If you can't remember that,
I know, I know. But, you know, when she's seen me, she's 20 months and her name is Tilly, and she goes, you know, like, you just won't buy it.
No.
Yeah. So there are those spontaneous moments of joy that just fill your spirit. And then you get those other ones that are completely the other way, where, you know, you can hardly breathe. You think to yourself, how am I ever going to manage this? And it gets back to just breathing. Yeah. And some tough corners, where you feel completely out of control and lost. Yeah. So one will manage the other, sort of like a weighing scales.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then be curious about how the day might pan out.
I do love that. I think curiosity is such a great attribute to develop because it leads you in so many different ways.
That's what you said in your description.
Yeah.
It's when it said, she's described herself as a curious lady.
Yeah, I'm always curious. I'm curious about, you know, who people are. I've also learned never to say hello to anybody on the plane.
Oh, because you're trapped?
No, what? You might get stuck in one of those moments of how am I ever going to get out
I
of here?
have no interest in you, so I just go...
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's called reading the play as well.
It's curious to a point.
There's a curious to a point. I am not interested whatsoever, especially when I'm on that plane for 12 hours. Yeah.
So, Pat, what do you envisage for your life over the next 5-10 years? What are you hopeful of?
I like to keep healthy, and I like travelling. We're pondering about getting a caravan and doing what we said we'd do in 1988 and travel Australia. That'll be interesting. We actually drove from Bunbury to Broome and wasn't a bit bored.
No, that's a great trip.
It was amazing, yeah. I think, Shauna, just to keep healthy and be there to be around my grandchildren and my family and be able to go home to Ireland when I can and and still be able to work and earn a few bob and so
keep yourself out of mischief.
Yeah, I'm 67 now, so
you're doing well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
That leads me to a question. What do you think every woman should hear at least once in their life, Pat?
I truly believe that there's a couple of words that will really ground you is when somebody says, I think you look beautiful and I love you. I think if you hear that as often as you can and it's genuine, you will manage any messiness and horrendous corners in life. Yeah. It's a symbolic antibiotic.
That's good.
I love the way you say things.
Yeah, because I was just about to say, Pat, because we always love a quote here on the Wisdom of Women, and we wanted your quote, but you've given us so many already. But what are the quote? There are a couple of quotes that really resonate with you.
Yeah, well, I've learned this. If I always do what I always did, I will always get what I always got. So it's no good saying, I need to do something different. And the other one is, I had another one and I'm just trying to think about what it was. Did I mention it to you a little bit earlier, Shona? Just remind me.
Oh.
Look at what I can do now.
Oh, yes.
That's it.
So I think this one is vital for me. For me not to look at what I can't do, because I can spend all day doing that. Like it took me ages to get up on the slide on Mother's Day to slide down with my grandchildren, right? So, you know, let's look at, I don't want to be looking what I can't do. I want to be able to turn that around and look at what I can do right now. So I think them two. If I always do, then I'll get what I always got.
Yeah.
And instead of looking at what I can't do, focus on what I can do.
Love it. Wise words.
Yeah, and thank you, Pat. Now, if you've been affected by any of the topics discussed in this conversation today, we've provided some links below. And please subscribe. You know, yeah, hit the button.
Hit the little button. And always remember,
Every day.
You are remarkable.